And then I read the first chapter of your book
Thank you.
about having a growth mindset. And so I've been thinking about that more, like growth mindset in a work environment. You think of what mistake did I make and how can I learn from that and improve upon my performance, right? So a growth mindset here for me in stroke recovery is thinking about, well, what can I do to better the results or my recovery or make my recovery more productive, I guess. So I've been thinking a lot more about just thinking positive, celebrating the little wins, having a little grace for myself, and also thinking about changing habits like eating healthier, which I don't eat very well.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to the Recovery After Stroke podcast. The final touches on my book keep on coming. Last time it was change a few words here, remove a line there. Now it's upload problems. So we're going to get there. Eventually the book will be live. But in the meantime, what I'd like to do is give away the first chapter of my book free. So the book is called The Unexpected Way the Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened, and it shares 10 secrets from stroke survivors that will transform your life. Now, if you go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book and fill out the form, you will receive the chapter of the book in your email a few moments later. Now, this is episode 279, and my guest today is Amy Silverman, who was 49 when she experienced an ischemic stroke while working at home during the lockdowns of the pandemic. If you are a stroke survivor with stories to share about your stroke experience, now is the perfect time to join me on the show. The interviews are not scripted. You do not have to plan for them. All you need to do to qualify is be a stroke survivor who wants to share their story in the hope that it will help somebody else who's going through something similar. If you are a researcher who wants to share the findings of a recent study, or you are looking to recruit people into studies, you may also wish to reach out and be a guest on my show. If you have a commercial product that you would like to promote that is related to supporting stroke survivors to recover, there is also a path for you to join me on a sponsored episode of the show. Just go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, fill out the form explaining briefly which category you belong to, and I will respond with more details about how we can connect via Zoom. Amy Silverman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Bill. I'm very excited.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
So about 3 years ago, in the middle of COVID, I had a ischemic stroke. And I was actually home at the time, and thankfully my husband noticed that there was something wrong with me because it was mid-morning and I was supposed to be working. I was working, and all of a sudden I was typing an email and realized that I couldn't move my left hand. So I went and got up from my desk, walked out to my den, and laid down on the couch. My husband came out. He was about ready to go play golf because it was a nice day. And he said, "What's wrong with you? Why are you lying down?" Because again, it's middle morning and I'm supposed to be working. And I said, "I'm just a little tired and disoriented. It's just, I feel a little weird." And I was slurring my words at the time, and I could hear myself slurring my words, but I couldn't correct myself. And he said to me, he said, "What's going on with you? Why are you slurring your words? Have you been drinking?" I said, "No, it's the middle of the workday." And he said, "Well, something's not right." And he called 911. He came back and he said, "I just called 911. They're going to come. I think you're having a stroke." And I said, "A stroke? What are you talking about? I feel fine. I don't feel anything. I just feel a little off and tired." And I said, "Please cancel the 911 call and go play golf. I'll see you in a little bit." So he said, "No, I'm sure you're having a stroke." And so he quickly went to his computer, Googled stroke symptoms, and came back and said, "Can you move your arms?" And I couldn't move my left arm. So what was interesting is I had gotten up from my desk after my hands stopped working, stopped typing on my laptop, and was able to make it to the couch. But at this point, I couldn't move my arm. So the emergency, the ambulance came, and the guys did their kind of, what day is it? What's your name? Where are you? All the normal questions. And they said, can you smile? And can you lift your arm? And this and that. And then I heard them call in to the hospital, which is very close to my house, actually, thankfully. And they said, we have a stroke patient here. And so all of a sudden I was whisked away to the local hospital. They gave me the TPA drug because they figured out that it was a blockage in my brain. And from there, they med flighted me out to, I live in the suburbs of Boston, so they med flighted me to the city to have emergency thrombectomy to remove the clot or to blast the clot. And so I had that. I was in the ICU for 2 weeks in Boston. And then I went to an inpatient rehab facility for 6 weeks before being released to go home. And then I had some home therapy, and now I've been outpatient therapy for several years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We,
so it changed my life. I was working, like I said, and it's been heartbreaking for me to have to leave my role.
were you working at home because of lockdown?
Yes,
So
we
that's a
locked down here,
blessing.
but yeah, I think so. Although after the stroke, I didn't see my parents for 6 weeks because the hospital and the rehab were very strict in letting people in. Like, I think I could only have 2 different visitors a day, and they could only stay for like 20 minutes. So my husband would come or my son would come in to see me. My daughter was at school, so she wasn't close enough to come visit.
Yeah. So
So
the
yeah.
lockdown perspective, though, was a blessing that you were working at home and your husband was
Hmm.
at home.
Right.
And then as a result of that interaction, he's
Hmm.
onto it almost immediately by the sound of things.
Yeah. So the nurse or the ER doctor who was working with me when I first got in there and she gave me the TPA, she said, "Oh, you're so lucky. You're in here within the first hour
Mm,
of this starting." So, and at one point they had video telemedicine in a neurologist from Boston who was also trying to assess me for what to do. And in the middle of the video, I was able, he was, doing the raise your arms, wiggle your toes and all that. And I was able to raise my arms and he said, "Oh, look, she's able to move." And then all of a sudden, right after he said that, I guess I slumped over and I started stroking out again, I guess. And so that's when they decided to move me to Boston to get surgery
yeah.
because the clot must have moved. Well, it must have moved when I got up, when it initially happened, and I got up and was able to walk to my sofa. And then it moved again when I was on this video conference with the doctor, the
Mm.
surgeon.
Did they work out the underlying cause of the clot?
So what's interesting is, a short story is no, I don't have any high risk factors. I'm not diabetic. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have high cholesterol. And I was, to me, stroke patients or survivors are usually people who are older. And I don't consider myself older. I mean, I'm 50 something at this point, but still,
Yeah.
like I'm thinking 60, 70-year-old people who have a lot of gray hair. I mean, I have some gray hair, but
if
that's more from my kids than anything else.
if grey hair is the judge of whether you're old or not, I know some 30-year-olds who are old.
Yeah, true.
Uh, but that's all right. I know what you mean. There is a perception that stroke
Yes.
is an ailment that happens to older people. We tend to see, I'm not sure if we see them more or they're promoted more or they're part of the campaigns to raise awareness. I'm not sure what it is, but it's true.
Yeah.
I had never known anyone who was young. Well, I was 37, so I had never known
Hmm.
anyone who was
Wow. Hmm.
anywhere younger or near that age that had a
Well,
stroke before.
apparently babies can have strokes.
Yeah.
Little children can have strokes.
I've interviewed
So,
lots of people at every age
mhm,
group and
mhm,
caregivers and parents of people. I've interviewed people who have had a stroke in utero. I mean, it's ridiculous, but for some reason, it's not well known that it happens to people at every age. And then there seems to be this hole that people fall into
yeah,
where they kind of disappear out of society and they're missed and they're not seen as being stroke survivors. At least
mhm,
that's how it felt for me. It has changed
mhm,
a fair bit, especially since podcasts and other communities have um, evolved, and also being people being able to self-publish has been another way that
mhm,
awareness of younger stroke has kind of increased. So it's been
right.
really interesting, but I you're not the only one who felt that way.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't know anything about strokes until unfortunately this happened. I didn't realize it was as high as 1 in 4 people will have a
Mm,
stroke.
mm. Yeah, it's
That's a lot
ridiculous.
of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is ridiculous. So when
So, the doctors, to go back to the cause,
yeah,
the doctors did a bunch of tests because, again, I didn't have any high risk factors. And they think it may be an autoimmune condition where I have something called antiphospholipid syndrome, which I
uh-huh,
think potentially causes clots. So now I'm on uh, blood thinners to counteract, hopefully, having another stroke. Hopefully not, so to prevent having a second stroke, sorry. I was super anxious about that afterwards. And actually, it wasn't until I had spoken to you or maybe read something that you wrote uh, that to help reassure someone that, the way they try to prevent a second stroke is because the cause of mine was a blood clot. The blood thinners really kind of help keep that as a mitigating factor so that it doesn't happen again versus someone who, let's say, has a brain bleed. There's
mm,
nothing you can, or at
not
least I don't
much.
think there, I don't know.
Yeah, well, with my brain bleeds, there wasn't much that I could do to prevent the second and third one from happening. Although I did
Hmm.
as much as I could, I still took
Yeah.
responsibility for not causing another one. And that meant that I, you know, changed the way that I worked. I changed,
Hmm.
you name it, everything like every stroke survivor changes.
Yeah.
And also my diet and my habits, and I meditated and I did everything to try and help it heal. But this particular blood vessel in my brain didn't want to be
Hmm.
healing anytime soon. So it took nearly 2.5 years to get to the point of surgery, more than 2.5
Hmm.
years. And in that time, it bled 3 times.
Oh
And
my gosh.
then the only way to stop it bleeding, to resolve it, was to remove it. And that's why we went in. And that's what the outcome, the idea was that you're at greater risk of a fourth bleed causing some major health problems, as well as potentially a risk of harming other people. For example, if I was driving or doing anything like that, which I had been
Hmm.
given permission to drive, and at lesser risk of complications from surgery. So when brain surgery has lesser complications as a risk factor, then it's definitely
Wow.
the thing to
In
do.
your house. Go. Sorry, my dog's whining at me. He wants dinner. It's dinner time. It's amazing they have this internal clock.
Yeah, they know exactly when it's time to
Hmm.
interrupt you. That's all good. So yeah, so it's interesting that uh, I think you can do a lot to manage your state, and if you can manage your state, and then also uh, make the most of modern medicine, then I think
Hmm.
that's a great thing. And if it helps ease anxiety and keep things calm, absolutely. I
Hmm.
mean, the anti antiphospholipid syndrome, there isn't really much to do about it. If you have the autoimmune condition, there isn't really much that I know of that you can do to reverse it or stop it from clotting the blood. But blood thinners is something
Mhm.
that is extremely safe for the majority of people, and can make a massive difference in keeping people well and healthy and avoiding stroke. So it's
Mhm.
great that that's a possibility for you. So has the antiphospholipid syndrome actually been diagnosed, or not exactly?
Not exactly. So that's the other thing is with autoimmune conditions. So I was undiagnosed for another autoimmune condition for so long, but they seem to run like once you have one, you're more likely to have another one. So there is a blood test, and it hasn't come back. Like none of my doctors, and I have a whole team of doctors now. None of them have said yes, it's definitively that. They've all said it's probably that, but it could be other things. So I have a fairly complicated medical history, but I do have an autoimmune condition which they thought was lupus, and it took a long time to come to figure out what it is, which is undifferentiated connective tissue disorder. So, you know, and they don't know if that's contributing to it or just the fact that I have autoimmune issues in general. It's crazy. I mean, science has come a long way in medicine, but I'm like a medical mystery, I feel like sometimes.
Is it annoying?
It's it's troublesome because it makes me wonder like what else is going to pop up because I also have a history of lymphoma, which I've asked the doctors about that as well, and they've said, we don't know if lymphoma caused the autoimmune condition or vice versa. It's the chicken or the egg. I'm not sure. So, yeah, complicated medical history.
Yeah. Okay. So I can understand why that causes you to try and think about what might come. But do you feel like you're unprepared for something that might come, or are you resigned to the fact that you're just living life and this is life? And what the hell do we do other than try and live our best life?
Great question. So, at this point, I think I'm grateful to be here still and living life as best as I can, not letting things hold me back.
Mm,
Like I'm going to travel if I can, and I keep thinking like at this point I got to do the things that I can still do now so I don't miss out or so that I can experience these things that I've wanted to experience. So, I mean, you can worry about anything. You can worry about being hit by a car or tripping and falling and hitting your head at this point. I mean,
mm,
there's just so many things you just got to keep living and look forward. And actually, I've been participating in a meditation group, which has been very helpful. And then also, like I read one of your other guests, her book, Andrew Reed. Um, so I just finished that book the other day. That was very good. And then I read the first chapter of your book
thank you.
about having a growth mindset. And so I've been thinking about that more like growth mindset in a work environment. You think of, okay, well, how did what mistake did I make and how can I learn from that and improve upon my performance, right? So a growth mindset here for me in stroke recovery is thinking about, well, what can I do to better the results or my recovery or make my recovery more productive, I guess.
Mm.
And so I've been thinking a lot more about just thinking positive, celebrating the little wins, having a little grace for myself, and also just thinking about changing habits like eating healthier, which I don't eat very well. And I mean, because I'm going through all the therapies, I'm going through
Mm,
physical therapy,
mhm.
occupational therapy, I'm going through psychotherapy, I'm doing meditation classes, I'm also undergoing acupuncture. So I think I'm doing a lot,
You
but
you are overperforming, you're overachieving. You've always been an overachiever though, right? At work, everything.
yes, like I wouldn't go back to my employer at the time when I had the stroke was so considerate and they were wonderful. They said, come back when you're ready. And I just I can do limited things with or a limited amount of work in a as long as it's really the cognitive recovery that I've been struggling with most. And because of that, I have trouble focusing and concentrating on things for long periods of time. And things like Zoom meetings also drain me. And
Mm.
so I knew I wouldn't be able to go back and perform at the level that I would have expected of me or that they had become used to. So I just said I can't do it because I don't like to fail. And yes, I like to overachieve.
Yeah. I think
So
you're
yeah.
doing heaps right. And there is a risk of overdoing it and doing too much. So
Hmm.
if you're focusing on, say, many things that are supporting your recovery, like all the therapies, then that's really good because they are supporting your recovery. And then
Hmm.
later on, what I found was I couldn't, well, just because of a normal brain, I can't overdo things anyway, because you can't really do everything all at the same time really well. You're going to slacken off and you're going to lose um, the ability to do all of those things at your best level, right? So
Right.
things drop off and things pick up. So what I found was when I left rehab after I finally left outpatient rehab, I was
Mhm.
then I had more time to myself.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
And then as a result of that, I got to the point of being able to focus, say, on nutrition better and do more with my nutrition because I had more time to my hands. So, there's time, you'll have time to adjust the things that you're not taking care of the most, and you'll be able to take care of them better when other things settle down. So it's kind of like if you have a to-do list, you can't run at it all at the same time. You have to kind of work your way towards it and then prioritize what you think is most important to you. Now, you don't look like your diet is terribly unhealthy. Perhaps you could do better, but hopefully you're not eating at McDonald's every day after your stroke and you're not, all your food is not based around that kind of nutrition sort of level. And if it isn't, then maybe there's opportunity for tweaking it and opportunity for making it a little better, and then that's a good thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the to-do list because like one of the things I used to pride myself on at work is getting what I would say GSD, so getting shit done.
Mm,
And it would make me feel productive and like I was contributing. And so now I have a to-do list for, my house, myself, and whatever. And I find that I usually can't tackle the list of 10 things that I would like to do for the day.
mm.
And so if I can focus on one or two, that's usually the best way to go about getting what I need to get done and also feeling productive.
I remember at one stage my priority was have a meal ready for everyone who came home after
Mm.
school and after work.
Hmm.
So because I had a lot of time on my hands and things started to settle down and everything is nearby, I was able to get to the shops, pick up some ingredients, bring them home. And if I did nothing all day, was fine as long as by around 6 o'clock there was a meal on the table, and then we could all
Hmm.
sit around the table and at least have a meal together. And
Hmm.
it's exactly that. I worked out what my priority was. That particular day, my priority was going to be to make a meal, and I made it, and we ate, and I knew that everyone was going to be home and we ate together. But I got nothing else done. And the old me would feel bad about getting nothing else done. It definitely would have. I would have been losing, I would have been always focusing on, "Oh, this hasn't been done, that hasn't been done, and I'll just get this done before I get up, and I'll just get that done." Then I'll be rushing to the shops to pick stuff up, and then I'll be rushing home, and I'll be doing it all under duress and under stress. And it was a completely different experience being able to just prioritize one task for the day and doing it really,
Right.
really well. It gave me a lot of satisfaction.
So, Phil, can you remind me what happened after your strokes? Were you left with any deficits?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
after the first incident, I was in hospital for 7 days, and I came home with on a medication called dexamethasone, which was a steroid to reduce inflammation in the brain, and that has side effects like you wouldn't believe, and it made me insomniac. It made me feel like there was stuff crawling on my skin. It made me hallucinate. It made me angry and mad and all this kind of stuff. So when I first came home, I was a complete basket case. I was a mess. I couldn't achieve or do anything other than basically just be around and try and kind of stay in this realm. I kind of felt like I was in a different realm. I was spaced out. I was on another planet. And that started to settle down, and I was at home for 6 weeks on doctor's orders to do nothing, absolutely nothing. So I did nothing, except 6 weeks later, literally a day or two before my 6-week follow-up, it bled again. And then when I ended up in hospital that time, I was in there for 3 days. But this time the blood clot went from what you guys might call a dime, the size of a dime, to about the size of a golf ball. So there was a lot more of my head.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yes.
a lot more of my head being impacted, and a lot more of my blood vessels, of my neurons, were kind of sleepy or switched off or damaged. And when I came back from hospital, then I wasn't allowed to do anything, and I couldn't do much. I remember sitting and trying to type some emails for work because I had a property maintenance business, and I'm trying to keep everyone going and clients paying and all that kind of stuff. I sat down to type an email, and I think like more than half the day had elapsed, and I hadn't managed to finish an email. At one point, I didn't know who my wife was. I couldn't remember who came to visit me. I definitely couldn't drive. Uh, I couldn't start and finish sentences. I kind of start a sentence and then fade out, and then I'd finish the sentence 2 hours later. So cognitively, I was really, really messed up. I still could walk, and everything was fine, and I never had left side deficits. And then as things started to improve, because that clot started to decrease, but it took nearly 2 years to decrease to get to the point where it was not impacting me anymore. I started to feel really well. But the time span was large. So between the first bleed and brain surgery was nearly 2.5 years. So in that time, I had every level of deficit and cognitive impairment and emotional challenges and mental health issues, and the whole thing all happened in that time. And it was in those early days of the second bleed when I was at home for the most. So the second time I was home probably for 3 or 4 or 5 months. And it was at that time when I had to try and find a way to feel like I was being useful and like pick one task and get that done. My dad was picking me up from home to drive me to my appointments, um, to the shops, everywhere that I needed. And it was, oh my God, it was just so all over the place. It was a completely different life experience. I had no idea uh,
Yeah,
what
that's
was
crazy. I
coming.
mean, I can't even imagine going shopping for groceries and then making a meal. I mean, I get tired if I'm going to get a drink from the refrigerator because
Yeah.
all of it, like the energy to concentrate on getting up,
Mm.
walking, and doing the things so that I mean, well, I can't cook right now because my left side is not functioning, but
Yeah.
just the thought of even trying to do that with one hand is difficult.
Yeah. I know that, I know that brain strain that you experience because I do get it still. In the early days, I used to get it a lot, and going to a shopping center with all the noise, the lights, and that was really hard. And I used to avoid sporting events for probably the first maybe 5, 6 years after this incident. And recently, about a year and a half ago, we went and saw Billy Joel, and even that was a difficult experience. He was live in concert here in Melbourne, and even that was hard for me to be at. Although it was enjoyable, part of me was feeling like maybe I'm best staying at home. So it still happens. With the fatigue, I was at that point at some stage where walking to go to the toilet was too far, and I would be completely wiped out for the rest of the day. So I know what you mean. One of the things that improved my fatigue was definitely adjusting my carbohydrate intake. So decreasing simple carbohydrates like pastas and sugars and breads
Oh, that's
really,
good to know.
really improved my 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 fatigue levels. And in
Mhm,
my book, which is almost ready, it's
mhm,
there's every time I think it's ready, they tell me there's something else that needs to be done to tweak it or fix it or whatever.
mhm,
So in my book, which will be out about a month after this goes live,
mhm.
um, in in the episode which is about nutrition, in the chapter which is about nutrition, there's a book that I mentioned in there called Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. And
Uh-huh.
that book is the book that I read that completely changed the way that I looked at nutrition to heal a brain and to support a stroke brain. Um,
Yeah,
and he talks about decreasing the intake of simple carbohydrates like that because of the way that they spike insulin and what that does to your energy levels, and then the whole cascade of events that happen after that.
right. So yeah, so I've been, I like you said, I have difficulty going to the I haven't been to the grocery store since the shutdown actually. So it's been three plus years. And or going to the pharmacy to pick up toothpaste or whatever, right? All of that stimulation of seeing all the products on the shelves, the
Mm,
lights, the people are really straining. I mean, uh, so, a few things that people said to me is you need to keep pushing so that way you can kind of exercise your brain that way. And I'm going to do another plug here. So I'm going to Disney in a few weeks, and that you would think would be crazy. And the first time I went to Disney after I had a stroke, I was, I mean, my husband was concerned. The heat, the lights, or no, sorry, the people, the music, all of it was. I took plenty of breaks. Like I know at this point that I have to take breaks when I travel. Like usually the first day after I get somewhere, I have to sleep the next day just to get over the flying in an airport,
yes,
going through TSA, getting scanned, getting patted down, whatever
yes.
it might be.
So we traveled to the United States in New Year's of 20 New Year's Eve 2020 2013. So not even a year after my first two bleeds, we went to the United States. We went to New York, California, Hawaii, and I was exactly the same. So I was dreading that entire flight. I had my wife organize that entire thing. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then when we got there, I often said to my wife, I'm probably going to do nothing tomorrow because I'm so wrecked that you guys go ahead without me, and I will just stay here and rest and recover. And I was surprised a couple of times that I was actually able to wake up in the morning feeling great and say, "Hey, we are back on. I'm coming with you guys. Everything's fine. I'm well." And then fade out during the day. And we went to Disneyland in California, and I feel like even though it was intense and all the things were happening, I feel like because of the joyful nature of the
Right.
traveling and the experience of being somewhere else, I feel like
Hmm.
the energy shifted and the fatigue kind of changed and it wasn't the same. So the idea of missing out then became something enjoyable, then became less of a thing that I focused on because it was a price worth paying to be there.
Right. So it's interesting that you say all that because people who know me. I love Disney. Like it's my happy place. And prior to my stroke, when we went, it would be I would go from the park opening to closing, and I would do two parks in one day sometimes. I mean, I was
It's an effort.
so Disneyland is a little bit different than Disney World, but so I was crazy. Like I would want to hit every ride and go through all of it and push through, even if I was exhausted. So going after my stroke, I remember the first time we were there that morning, the first morning we woke up, I was heartbroken that I just felt like I couldn't do anything. And so, yeah, but to your point, it's such a joyful place and it's a good change of scenery and the stimulation. I mean, Disney does a great job of sort of allowing people with neuro difficulties to have spots where they can go to be quiet. I mean,
Mm.
I think it was like 90 degrees out one of the days that we were there. And I said to my husband, like, I have to take a break. I have to go into air conditioning. So we went to their first aid area and walked in and I said, hey, I just need a quiet space. I need to potentially just cool down and lie down. And so she gave me one of the rooms to take a quick nap in, really. And I was refreshed and I was ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great move. I love
Hmm.
that. And there's something about being able to go into a quiet space for me as well. This particular
Hmm.
room, I've turned it into a little recording studio.
Hmm.
It's soundproof. If I come in here, things completely shift for me. Like my whole energy levels change and shift, and things settle down and they calm down. And that is the thing that bugs me the most when we're in the house, the TV's on, people are talking and just being themselves, the doors are banging
Hmm.
uh, on the cupboards and all that type of stuff. They are the noises that drive me loopy the most. Those everyday incidental kind of noises that occur just because people are out and about. And I've found that this room really does calm me down neurologically. It's probably
Hmm.
a, a real saving grace because it doesn't matter where I go in my house, it's little. So you can't really escape the noises, even if you go into a room. And when I was at work, I remember going to work because after brain surgery, I wasn't actually able to go back to my property maintenance business for 3 years.
Hmm.
I used to go to work with real good headphones that were noise cancelling without any music on. And I would just put them on my head because we were in an office of 30 or 40 people
Hmm.
and it was too much going on for me to cope. Monitors, bright lights above my head, 40 people. It just it wouldn't work. So I used to put headphones on and they used to calm me down and make it possible for me to get through a morning's work.
Yeah, I think you and I had talked about people who are returning to work who've had a stroke could potentially have, or maybe the employer could make accommodations for them to have a quiet room
Mm.
or supply noise canceling headphones, whatever it might be, to help, or dim the lights to help them get back to work.
Yeah, there's simple things you could just do it in one person's office,
Hmm.
and you wouldn't need to allocate a lot of space. Just put some soundproofing on the walls, dim the
Hmm.
lights, and put a curtain in there, and get rid of the desk and make it possible for somebody to just go in there and sit in a beanbag or just lie down. And
Right.
it makes such a massive difference getting that nap, that power
Hmm.
recharging nap is just so important.
Yeah.
So tell me about the family. You're a busy lady. Not only were you at work and overachieving there, what's family life like?
So family life, I have a daughter and a son who are young adults. My well, at the time when I had the stroke, they were both in school, and I have a dog and my husband. Clearly I have a dog. He's running around. So,
Making a
but
mess.
nowadays my son is at school still. My daughter is now in the Boston area. She's working, so she's graduated college, and yeah, so that's and I have a lot of support from my brother-in-law who live very close to me, and my parents. I have to say, like, my support system has been fantastic from my family and from all of my therapists and from my friends. So I've been very fortunate. And we're very fortunate in being able to have a private health aide be with me during the day when my husband's at work to take me to my appointments and to help me with the things that I can't do around the house anymore, like household chores, whatever it might be, cooking. Although, sorry, my husband will be quick to correct you and tell you that he's the one that does all the cooking, because he has to come home from work, and unlike you, I am not preparing a meal at this point.
Yeah, I hear you. And
So,
your deficits, your left side, are
mhm.
you able to get onto your feet or not yet?
I am able to get onto my feet actually. So I am able to walk very short distances without a cane. And I still kind of I'm not supposed to, so don't tell my PT this, but I still use my wheelchair around the house because we have hardwood floors. So I zip around the kitchen island with the chair. But yeah, if I needed to get up and walk to the refrigerator, I can do that with a cane and not use the chair. And I can also probably walk to the other side of the house, but I don't. So
I feel like telling your PT. What would the PT say if they found out that you were slacking off?
she probably would tell me she wouldn't be too hard on me. She would give me a little bit of wiggle room, I guess, and say, well, try not to use the chair, let's say, to go to the bedroom. Try to walk as much as you can down the hallway to the bedroom.
Yeah. Why do you choose to what do you think the underlying reason is that you choose to go down the path of the wheelchair instead of walking?
It's just easier, it's quicker, it's less thinking,
Uh-huh.
and I know I'll be safe because I am home alone a lot during the day
Uh-huh.
and sleepy because I don't sleep well. And so I'm worried that sometimes if I get up in the middle of the day to go, let's say, walk to the bedroom or whatever it might be,
Mm.
that and I don't eat well, like I said, so I'll skip meals, which also
Mm.
makes me lightheaded. So I know
Uh,
I'm doing all these great things that I told you about, but I'm also not. So
you're not perfect.
lying to myself, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the safety side of it. I did have a few falls at home when I was at home alone
Hmm.
because my after brain surgery, my left side wasn't working properly, and my leg didn't know it was on the ground. So I'd be sitting on the couch,
Uh-huh.
for example, and having a bit of lunch or a cup of tea or something, and I'd go to stand up like I always did in the past, except when I stood up, I did the all the right motions, but my leg didn't know that it was up and my head wasn't receiving the signals. So then the
Hmm.
knee would collapse on me, the knee would buckle, and then I'd fall. So I had a few falls that involved getting up
Oh,
off the
geez.
couch and walk into the kitchen with a plate and a cup. and then smashing that on the ground and then injuring myself. So
I have to say, getting up off the floor is one of the harder things to do when you're hemiplegic, I guess is the
yeah,
word,
yeah,
when you're paralyzed on one side.
yeah,
Takes a lot of practice and a lot of energy. So
yeah,
falling in itself is terrifying because you don't want to bump your head at this point.
yeah,
And being alone, it's like, oh my gosh.
yeah. Do you have one of those things around your neck where you can call for help by pressing a button?
Oh, like those I fallen, I can't get up things.
Yeah.
So you want to know what's interesting? And this is not a positive plug, not plug, but so my husband had gotten me the Apple Watch because he wanted me to have something like they're supposed to be able to detect if you fall. Well, I fell at one point and the watch never went off.
Mm,
So
right.
I don't rely on that. I just hope that my watch or my phone are somewhere close by so I can say, hey Siri, call whatever.
Okay, so that's, and now
Oop,
she's calling.
cancel. Yes.
Okay, cool. So if your watch is on, at least you do have the option of doing that.
Yeah. Presuming that it's or assuming that it's charged because it does not hold a charge for more than a day, which is
Okay.
another complaint. So I am not endorsing Apple.
Okay, good.
I'm endorsing Disney, but not Apple.
I was going to get them onto the podcast to be my main sponsor. Not anymore.
Oh.
No, yeah. No,
Well,
that's
you
a
can
joke.
edit this out then.
Yeah, no, I'm not editing it out. That was a joke. I do like the fact that you're telling us it didn't work for you, because some people might be thinking the same way and relying on it.
Hmm.
And the last thing you'd want is to rely on something that may not respond the way you want it to. My
Right.
father-in-law, who's quite elderly and he's unable to get up and walk around. He has one of those things they wore around. He wears around his neck. It's like
Hmm.
a alarm device that he can press if he
Hmm.
needs help for whatever reason, and then it somehow calls. He has a speaker next to him, but somehow it calls the device head office, and then they have
Hmm.
3 phone numbers, my wife,
Right.
my 2 sister-in-laws, and it goes to them,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
they can respond if he's not answering, because sometimes he'll press it when he's on the toilet because he can't get off for whatever reason, and he can't get back to
Hmm.
his seat. If he doesn't respond, then we know that we
Hmm.
just need to go to the house and attend and see what's up and what he needs. So,
Right.
I can't remember what those devices are called, but they are specifically designed for that reason. You wear it around your neck and then you just press the button. They're not beautifully
Yeah.
encrusted with diamonds
No,
and
and
everything.
actually, it's kind of a joke when people say, "Oh, I've fallen and I can't get up," and it's always like this elderly person who's in the commercials.
Yeah.
They portray it as
Yes.
older people who are falling
Yes. Which
because
is,
they don't have balance or whatever it might
yeah,
be. Yeah.
it's a big market for them, but it's definitely
Hmm.
applicable to us as well, people who are going through stroke
Right.
recovery. So I think
Hmm.
what I like about your situation is that I think you've got a lot of recovery to still go. I think you've got
Hmm.
heaps of potential for getting better and better and better. And I don't know what that looks like in 5 years, but I reckon it looks better than it
Right.
is now. And I think as you
Hmm.
start to feel better about overcoming the um, the way that you're thinking about the things that are stopping you and the things that could go wrong, as you sort of shift that into a space of how can I improve my mindset around uh, walking more often and not cheating with the wheelchair? How can I improve my mindset around eating better? Once you start shifting in that space, you'll start to gain more momentum and additional recovery will occur. And then
Hmm.
you'll start to build on that.
Fingers crossed. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's possible because I've interviewed 270 people now, and people
Yeah.
are recovering all the time and continuing to recover for ages and ages, and it doesn't stop. Um, and you'll be surprised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm on, like on Facebook, there's a stroke survivor recovery group where people just talk about, like, there are people on there who make gains 14 years after having a stroke. So
Mhm.
it's a continual process, and I recognize that. And I think recovery for me is different definition for somebody else. Like recovery for me might be being able to go to the pharmacy and buy a birthday card and come
Mm.
home and not be exhausted, or it might be walking for the entire day around the house versus using the chair, or not using the chair for the entire day, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
So
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
different means of recovery. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
It doesn't
me.
have to be I'm gonna run a marathon,
No,
or I'm gonna go shopping at the mall for 3 hours for holidays or whatever. Yeah.
maybe you can just attend the Boston Marathon and observe it.
I have done that, so,
That's the
but not since the stroke. So,
yeah.
but
That's
it
the
is very
only way.
close.
That's the only way that I would observe a marathon. I'd never be involved in a marathon. Forget about that. I couldn't if I wanted to. I can't run the way that I used to run
Uh-huh.
before stroke. My leg doesn't
Right.
participate in that in the way that it used to. But even if I could run, there's no way I'd ever run a marathon. Let somebody else do it.
Yeah. I could walk maybe. I mean, not walk a marathon, but that would be the only way I would finish a marathon, even before the stroke,
Yeah,
was is to walk it.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, we've
So
spoken
one
a
of
lot.
the things I do want to do
Go for
is get back on the treadmill. So I used to
it. Uh-huh.
walk a lot outside, and that would be very nice to be able to do again. And so now my PT actually has gotten me on the treadmill without the hoists and the balloons and all that that hold you up. So I'm walking very slowly, but at least I'm walking. And I'd like to at least build up to a light jog at some point so that I could eventually get back to walking outdoors.
There you go. That's it. That's exactly what I was talking about, right? So how you
Yeah.
see that is probably definitely doable, 100% achievable.
Hmm.
How long it takes, that's the other thing. The timeline
Hmm.
shouldn't be rigid. It should be flexible so that you don't disappoint yourself if you don't get there on January 1st of 2024. Some
Right.
people give themselves deadlines and then they don't get there and they get really down on themselves and it's tough. So just don't have a deadline or a timeline on it and just focus
Right.
for
And
one
just using
one
the word
percent.
yet, right?
That's it.
I
Yeah,
think you said that to me.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, yet is amazing. It's also in chapter 1 there of the book. Now we've
Hmm.
spoken a lot about all the things that you have got at your disposal, all the things that you are doing. Somebody like you, who's got a lot of things at their disposal as far as stroke recovery tools, resources are concerned. Is there something that you're missing? Because I reckon there might be still something kind of there that generally stroke survivors miss. There might be a theme there that develops if I ask enough people. Is there anything that you're missing in your stroke recovery?
So I recently actually looked into a, a gym, a fitness facility that is inclusive, meaning they serve uh, clientele that are neurodiverse. So as I said to them when I met with them, they asked the typical questions like, what are you looking for? What are your goals? And I told them, I'm going to physical therapy, so I'm working on my walking and my gait. But what I think I'm missing is the overall fitness. I'm not really getting cardio work, and I'm not really
Mhm.
getting like core strength work, because I think my recovery would be a lot more difficult if I hadn't been at like active. I wouldn't say active. I wasn't a gym rat by any means, but if I hadn't been at least in decent shape and had some strength and muscle on my right side. So that is something that, yeah, I think I'm missing. So I'm trying to fill that gap as well.
I hear you.
And
So
this is a one-on-one training.
like adaptive gym.
Yes, it is an adaptive gym. Yes. And the way it works is that you meet with a one-on-one coach. So it's almost like personal training. So it would hold me accountable if I met with them every week. And I assume, or I'm hoping that they'll help me with exercises to, keep my right side strong while also trying to work my left side at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, working with my PT, when we do strengthening exercises, I'm working on both legs, but again, I'm not doing the overall fitness with the because I can't do cardio. I mean, I can't run. I
Mm.
mean, I know there are other things to do
Bike?
to work on cardio. Biking, yeah, recumbent biking I think is an option. I am on a recumbent cross trainer or a recumbent elliptical machine, but that hasn't really been a consistent exercise that I do with my PT. And I think the inclusive fitness gym will incorporate that into my program.
Yeah. I think there's a market for it because Abigail Atkinson, who I interviewed on episode 100 and what episode was that? Not 100, like a few episodes ago, 200 and something, 271.
Wow.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Abigail is running a adaptive yoga class. And that was really cool because she started off being a yoga instructor and then
Mm-hmm.
she had a stroke in
Mm-hmm.
her 40s. And then as a result of that skill that she had and being really excited about kind of getting back to yoga, she adapted it. And now she has a proper adaptive yoga class and a fair amount of offerings in that space. And I think that some people are starting to become aware of the possibilities in adaptive situations. I went to the gym for the first time in many, many years because it occurred to me that I could go to the gym and use the weights that are on machines.
Mm-hmm.
Those whatever they call them, I don't know. So they're no free weights because if I have to
Yes.
use free weights, my left hand won't manage the barbell or whatever it is that I'm pushing or pulling. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I'm doing the machine weights, then the balance is there because it's
Mm-hmm.
not strength that I lack, it's feedback back to the brain from the hand that I lack. So my hand can
Yeah.
push, it just doesn't know how hard it's pushing. And it also doesn't know
Yeah.
when it's tired to tell my brain to stop. So when it tires, when it fatigues, it just stops dead. And that's the hard part. It's like trying to manage
Right.
the weight when the left hand goes, I'm out. And then the balance is lost, and then there's no way of recovering that. It's dangerous. So when I
So
went
I
back to the gym,
recently ordered a pulley, like
yeah,
something to do with my arms, where you can pull with your right and it
yes,
moves passively. I guess passively moves your left as long as your left is, I guess, strapped to the handle,
that's it. That's it.
right?
Something
Uh-huh.
like that. So it's definitely
Mm-hmm.
possible. And the guy at my gym, his daughter had a stroke when she was 3 or 4. So he kind of understands my
Wow.
needs a little better than most
Mm-hmm.
people. So when I went there and said,
Yeah.
create me a program without any free weights, um, it
Mm-hmm.
was real easy conversation to have. And
Mm-hmm.
then and even that, right? I say that, but then I also interviewed. I'm going to go onto my website now, recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes, and I'm going to go to one of my very early episodes where I interviewed a lady who had a stroke and she became a hemiplegic. And I think it was I'm not sure which side wasn't working, but she decided to become a power lifter. And
Oh, wow.
And as a result of becoming a power lifter, her name is Kelly Studebaker. It was episode 106. She does it with one side of her body only. And if you look at the images of Kelly on her Insta, um, she is like a power lifter on one side and a stroke survivor on the other side. There's a complete separation of the two people. You can see completely the different. The side that has been trained to within an inch of its life, and the other side that is not participating in the weight training.
Right.
So people find a way. It's basically what I'm saying is people are also adapting what they are going to do, and they're finding a way regardless. And it was just fascinating for me to speak with her, because she just decided that she wasn't going to miss out on going to the gym and doing this stuff no matter what. And she just did it all with one hand. So yeah, that's that. What I'm saying
I
is
think, yeah, I mean,
possibilities, however you like it
the
to
world
be.
is thinking about including people and being inclusive and being diverse, right?
It's thinking about it.
And actually so going to Disney, one of the things I want to do is make sure I can go on the rides.
Yeah.
So my therapists have been helping me with, how do I get on this ride and how am I going to hold on? And, she said, "Oh, you're crazy. I can't believe you're going to go on those roller coasters." And I said, "Well, I'm not really a crazy person. I'm pretty conservative. Like, I'm not a thrill seeker." But I told her, I said, I'm glad I did what I've done so far. Like, I've gone skiing. I can't go skiing again because I shouldn't say I can't. It's not safe for me to necessarily go skiing, because if I fall, I bump my head, then that's not good.
Yeah.
And I've gone ziplining before, but ziplining is something that can easily be adapted to somebody who may have disabilities, because you just have to be in a harness
It's passive.
and be able to, yes, exactly. So things like that. I mean, even skiing, I know that there's adaptive ways to ski. And I used to golf, and I'm right-handed, so I can swing my club. It's just a matter of keeping the balance of when I shift my weight and twist and turn. So they do have adaptive golf available.
I interviewed a gentleman called Musa Pam, episode 48. So many episodes ago, one-handed golf champion in his particular division, group, or
Wow.
wherever.
Right.
And he decided that he was going to seek out organizations that supported, I think, adaptive golf, for example. Perhaps I'm not sure if that's the right word, but golf for people who can only use one arm. And apparently in America, there's a massive organization that has a huge event calendar for people who want to play golf
Wow.
and can only use one
I
arm.
mean, I
So,
was never good at it to begin with, so I
yeah.
doubt I would be able.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're
But
not
at
events.
least it's available to people.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah,
about, it's not about winning the
I know what you're
trophy.
saying.
But yeah, there is. That's the cool thing about it, is there is. Maybe
Yeah.
there never used to be. And oh man, it was just so cool um to have a chat to him and to listen to his story. And again, like you, he just rediscovered a couple of things that he loved, and he was able to participate. And that's all he wanted. The fact that he became a champion in his particular division or whatever, that's beside the point. But it was getting there. Getting there was the cool part.
Yeah.
Um, and and when you're playing golf again, so to speak, after something like we've been through, well, that's a massive achievement. You've done so much, you've recovered so well, you've overcome so many things, and look, you're back in a different way, but you're back uh, on the golf green, and it's like brilliant.
Probably just as terrible.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
Might still be a hack, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
as we come to the end of the episode, I'd like to ask you the questions that I've been starting to ask some people now about their stroke
Okay.
journey. And first one
hmm
is, what's the hardest thing about stroke for you?
The hardest thing is, I think, losing my previous. I identified with my career for a very long time, and so then when I had to leave work, it was really devastating to me, and I really didn't want to. So that's been the hardest thing.
Yeah. So that's why I suppose you would have got a lot out of reading Angie Reid's book.
Yes. And I know
Um,
that she has an upcoming book about exactly that,
yeah, she's had
which I'm looking forward to. So,
about identity loss, and her first book that you read was
hmm
the book called Invisible Scars, which, by the way, for anyone listening
right,
who wants to get a free PDF version of that, they can just go
right.
to Recovery After
Here, I
Stroke.
have it right here, actually. I'll just show
Ah,
everybody.
oh, yeah,
I
beautiful.
actually bought it because, yeah,
It's an amazing
it's
book
a great
cover
book.
as
Like,
well.
so I actually had my health aide read the first chapter, and I'm going to get my kids and my husband to read the first chapter because I think the first chapter is really telling. And I just read it and I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. Oh, that makes me feel so better. And I just kept kind of saying that as I was reading it.
Uh-huh. And do you feel like people then can relate to you better by reading that chapter?
I think only my health aide has read it at this point, but she thought it was, wow, that's really interesting. And
So
that
it
makes
gives them,
sense why you are the way you are. Yeah.
so it gives people an insight into our world
Yes,
without us
exactly.
having to tell them.
Right. Because I've always had trouble communicating, not communicating, but describing what it feels like to have a stroke brain because I equated it to I feel like I'm hungover most of the day between the mild headache, the brain fog, and just the lack of energy to do anything. That's what I kept saying in the beginning, but I think it's more than that.
I hear you. It's definitely more than that, but I know that's the only way to tell people who have
Yeah,
never had a stroke, right? I get it.
right.
Yeah.
hmm But just the sensations on my affected side are crazy too.
What do you experience? I feel numbness, tingling, tightness, burning, cold.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
So, especially like when I'm doing a new exercise, let's say you get that muscle soreness, that actually feels good. But I never know if it's normal or if it's okay.
mm,
So yeah.
my my deficits, my left side deficits happened after brain surgery as a complication of brain surgery. So that was 2014. So next year will be 10 years since then. Just past the 11
hmm
November will be the 9-year mark. And that numbness has been the same, and it's been like that the whole time. It hasn't changed at all. In fact, when I get tired, it gets worse, and it's more responsive, and it's more annoying, and it's more challenging to deal with and handle. And I got to get a lot of massages so that my left side is always settled down and balanced and
hmm
not as tense, because the right side then suffers. The right side gets
Right.
thrown out of whack because my left side's always out of whack. So I'm always sort of
Right.
struggling with my muscles. Uh, do you
Yeah,
find
I
that
think
body therapies work well that support you? Have you been down that path?
so. I have not, I have when I see my OT, she'll massage the soft tissues that, she'll say my muscles tight somewhere or the acupuncturist might poke somewhere and it'll be painful. So I think I'm developing a pinched nerve because my left side isn't as strong as my right side, and when I sleep, I guess my head must dip a certain way, or I don't know.
Yeah,
So I'm sorry, I forgot what your question
yeah,
was.
yeah. I was just wondering about massage, whether or not it supports you, or whether you've been down that path.
No, but I would actually, I think I think I would love to get massages on a regular basis, because the circulation, once the few times that I have had some sort of massage, it's always benefited me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you need to go to a neuro massage specialist or just any
No.
masseuse?
Yeah. I like the deep tissue guys, the ones that just
Hmm.
destroy your muscles and everything, and they just get into places that they're not supposed to go,
Yeah,
and it just feels great
yeah,
after, not at the beginning, but after.
hmm,
Um,
yeah. During, it's painful when
yeah,
my OT is doing the massage on my arm.
yeah. So as we continue, I'm wondering, what has stroke taught you?
Stroke has taught me that I have a great support system and that I'm more resilient than I thought I was, and that I can do things that I didn't think I could do. And yeah, so I think the resiliency and the appreciation from my family has increased a lot.
Yeah. And finally, if somebody's listening to this who's just started their journey, what would you like to tell them?
Hmm. I would probably tell them, get going ASAP and keep moving. Use it or lose it.
Yeah,
I'm finding that I should have probably been pushing harder initially, and you're going to make a ton of, hopefully, progress in the very beginning, and it does slow, and that's okay. You just got to keep going.
yeah. And when you hit the barrier and you feel like you've gone too far, that's also a good sign for in some instances, because you know where your limit is, and then you
Hmm.
can navigate to next time get to the limit a little less dramatically and just take it easier and get there
Hmm.
sort of more gently.
Hmm.
But then also you've known that you've got beyond your limit, and that's a good thing too, because
Hmm.
that helps to support that recovery sort of improvement, and that getting better, and that 1% change, and that slow um that slowly kind of overcoming your limitations. So if you go over a little bit, just give yourself plenty of time to rest afterwards. It's an absolute pleasure chatting to you. We've done this a couple of times now, and I really appreciate you coming
Yeah,
onto the podcast, giving me your feedback
of
about
course.
the book
Thank
and
you so
sharing
much
your
for
story.
having me. I've
Yeah.
been hesitant, and but I hope it does help somebody out there to hear my story.
Well, it definitely does. Let me share something with you, and I'm going to do a separate video for people on my socials so that they can definitely hear this. So I had an email from a lady literally a week ago who said that
Hmm.
she had a particular weird, strange headache. And I'm not sure how, but she kind of realized that it was around her carotid artery. And she Googled
Hmm.
some strange carotid artery thing. And you wouldn't believe it.
Hmm.
It brought up my interview with one of the people who I
Oh,
interviewed
wow.
about their carotid artery dissection and their stroke. And she listened to the interview and she thought, that sounds familiar. That's sort of similar.
Uh-huh.
Then she decided to listen to a second interview of another person who I
Hmm.
interviewed, and they were exactly the same symptoms. As a result of
Wow.
that, she got herself to hospital and told them, I think I have a carotid artery dissection. They,
So you saved somebody's life.
not me, this podcast, us, we did it together, right?
Right.
And she's gone and told them what the problem is. They've checked, and sure enough, there was a
Hmm.
carotid artery dissection, and it was at that point
Wow.
where it had not yet caused a clot, and it's avoided a stroke for sure, and
Hmm.
potentially saved a life. And now she's on the mend, and they are looking at resolving the carotid artery dissection and not dealing with a stroke. So how amazing is that?
Mm. Yeah, that's great. Sounds like you should have her as a guest.
I tried to get her on, but she's not ready yet. So I'm going to give her space.
Yeah.
and I'll hit her up again in the
Yeah.
new year. But isn't it amazing that that's a possibility now for people to discover things like that because of a podcast? And I always sort of
Right.
said, if our podcast only helps one person, then I've done my job. And there's the person.
Yeah.
And now that the job's done, I'm just going to keep doing it because I can't stop now. So thanks for helping me do that.
Of course, yes. And thank you again for having me and spending time to speak with me. I always find it very beneficial. And I get all sorts of great, tips and encouragement from you. So thank you for doing the podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for joining us on today's episode. Remember to grab your copy of Chapter 1 of the book, The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened. Just visit recoveryafterstroke.com/book to take a look around and discover what the book is all about. And then just click the download free chapter button. As always, to learn more about my guests, including links to their social media and other pages, and to download a full transcript of the entire interview, please go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. Thank you to everyone who has already left a review. It really means a lot to me. It also means that other stroke survivors who are looking for this type of content will actually find it, and that will make their life easier. So it's really important that you leave a review for them, but I'll really appreciate it also if you leave the review for me. So go ahead and do that. Go and leave a 5-star review and a few words about what the show means to you on iTunes and Spotify. If you are on YouTube watching the interview, leave a comment below the video. I love seeing comments. I respond to all the comments. Thanks again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.